Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up a great interview with Dustin Heiner. Anthony, what is a takeaway or two that you had from this interview?
I'd say the first thing that he started off talking about his story, and he started off saying, I had a very secure job, and I almost blurted it out. You know, in my eyes, the only secure job is you get something from the government.
Yeah.
But he had a secure job and he got laid off. And that to me reiterates the vow. And he had just had his fourth kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that shows the importance of having additional sources of income, whether the goal is to get all of your passive income more than your monthly expenses, but at least to be able to have some income on the side, not dependent on your W-2. Also, he had a unique approach. We have a lot of guys talking about investing in real estate. He framed it more as building a business in real estate. And I think that mindset is important, because you're not just buying an individual investment. Like a business has resources. It's going to need some accounting. It's going to need some marketing. We're going to need some management, but building that infrastructure first and then buying a house. What were some takeaways you had, Cam?
Man, there was really good information that he shared with us. There's two things I was going to say here. The first one is, man, he opened up with this story about him getting fired and the walk down the hallway to getting fired. And he did a great job kind of emotionally describing the scenario. And he talked about his feet feeling like lead buckets. And the visual that I had is oftentimes when I talk to people about, getting out of debt is kind of a suffocator, right? It feels like a weight that just sits on your chest, and very difficult to kind of enjoy life or to breathe in those situations. And so I saw some parallels there. He was scared about losing his job. He didn't have any control. And the same thing happens with a lot of people that carry debt is, it's just suffocating. You don't have any control at that point. So it was great to hear his story, to see how he overcame that. But the other thing that he wrote down, man, he gave us a great quote. Hope we take this out and put this as a clip on social media. He said that wealth does not always equal income, but income will always equal wealth. And he spent several minutes talking about kind of the difference between investing for cash flow versus appreciation and some of the mistakes around those two options. And so I won't ruin the rest of it for you, but great interview with Dustin Heiner. Dustin is the founder and host of Master Passive Income, a blog and a podcast about investing in real estate properties. His goal is to help 1 million people become financially free. And we hope that you guys are a handful of those people. So enjoy this episode.
Take care.
If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, along with Nelson Nash's Infinite Banking Concept. Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And today we're bringing somebody in that is not just teaching passive income, but he's living it. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Cameron, Anthony, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I absolutely love how when you have financial freedom, because you have money coming in without you working, you can literally just do whatever. You have 40 plus hours of your life back to do whatever you want with it. And then I get to come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So thank you so much for having me on.
Hey man, we're excited to have you on. We're talking about some of the problems that I think a lot of our listeners are having. And I think you're a solution that they've been looking for. So we're excited to jump into your story and introduce you to our audience. But Dustin, man, tell us, or maybe take us back to the point in which you actually realized you needed to start creating passive income.
Yeah. So, I have 30 plus properties now, single family homes. I have 750 unit apartment complexes. I have lots of investments that bring me money, but I didn't start there. In fact, I started just like probably everybody else, like you're taught to go to school, you get good grades, and you take those good grades, and then you hopefully go to a college or university and get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt and get a piece of paper called a degree. And you take that degree and you go around to different companies, try to get a quote unquote career there, and then work 40 plus years of your life, and then retire at 65, 70 years old and live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time working that just over broke job. I call it JOB. It's just over broke because that's what you're living. So I'm doing that exact same thing. In fact, I get the most stable, secure job you could ever think of. I work at a local county government in California doing technology. And those three are not going away. Government, California, and technology are not going away. So stable, secure job. But then I bought one rental property back in 2006. When I started investing, it was 2006. And it started making me money without even working. It was a rental. And I was like, this is fantastic. I'm not working. My property's working for me. And I started making money. And I knew I needed to be an investor. But you know what happens? Like always, life got in the way. In fact, my wife and I started having kids. 1, 2, 3, and 4 kids. But I'm still working this desk job because that's where the money is rolling in. I just kind of took my eye off the ball. But this is really what shoved me to become a real estate investor, or like a catalyst. So after my wife had our 4th child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all that good stuff, bonds with a baby. Well, I go on paternity leave, and then 2 weeks later, I come back. And that same week that I get back from work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. And I thought, why in the world are they coming to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. And I remembered a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there were some rumors that there were potential problems or layoffs in the county because the taxes revenue was going down. I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way. I got so much seniority here. My bosses think I do a great job. So I shook it off. But then I get up and I go walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Well, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was just starting to crush down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take my seat and I think about my life. This entire plan that I was told by other people, if I get laid off right now, did I just waste my life following this plan? And then, oh my goodness, we just had our 4th kid. If I can't feed my family, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy. My forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing me. Then the door to my boss's office opens up and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset, and she's almost crying, but she's just walking by me. And my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? So I get up, I go into his office, and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off in the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I realize 2 things. Well, the first one, I need to get another job. I need to find a way to provide for my family. So praise the Lord, I found another job in the same county. Another department wasn't having these budget issues. So check, got that. But then the second thing that I realized was I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I told myself, whenever I would get asked the question, what do you do? You know, we all get that question. And I would always reply with my job. I do IT work for the county. Well, when we answer with our job, we're projecting out to the world that our value that we put on ourselves is coming from my job. And then I realized my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself, from my family. So right then and there, I started telling every single person that I met that I am an investor. Now, it may so happen 100% of my money came from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So I'll fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250, $350, $400, $500 a month. I still own majority or all of them that I bought. And after 30 plus properties, I realized I'm losing money working this job. So quick last part of the story. I went to my new boss after a number of years working there, good boss and all. I said, "Hey boss, I'm laying you off," jokingly.
Nice.
Yeah, we laughed. He says, "Dustin, what are you going to do?" I said, "I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that makes me money every single month without working." And the last quick part of the story, I would walk to and from my job to my car because it was downtown. It was a 1.5 mile walk every single day. I've done it 1,000 times. Well, this last time walking in my car, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never ever need a job again, as opposed to that job, that walk where I went down the hallway, where the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And the reason why is because I realized, and everybody, for you listening to this, you need to realize that nobody could ever pay you what you're worth. You're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they did, they would go broke. So instead, what I realize and what I share with everybody now is figure out a way where your value that you put out into the world is making 100% of the value back to yourself. Now that I quit my job, I have 40 plus hours of my life back to do whatever I want. Now I just love building businesses. And one quick last thing, my, mission or goal in life now, because finances, I'm totally got plenty of money, I don't need to do anything else, is now to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. That's now my mission in life. And I kid you not, the more people that I help make money, become financially independent, the better my life gets, the more money I make, and the more money they make. And so I just realized this is the best way to go.
Dustin, I love that story. There's a lot to it. There's one question I'm going to kind of start with here was what jumped out at me is you mentioned that it goes along with taking back control, right? In the first scenario that you described to me, you had zero control. You're walking down the hallway, right? Scared to death. And then the second one is you're walking out of there and you've got 100% control. You just fired your boss. I think what keeps a lot of people from kind of taking that first step is they think that they have to save up money to acquire a rental property, or they have to have a lot of money to buy that first property. Would you mind sharing numbers or give us some thoughts on that kind of myth?
100%. So the money it takes to buy a property, in fact, I'll say it this way. I have personally, as well as coached we have thousands of students now, thousands of students to do many different ways to get financing. 16, if not actually, it's like 17 different ways to get financing. Like if you think money's the problem, it's actually not the problem. It's one of the easiest things in the whole process of investing in real estate. Once you have a good deal, the money will be there. I know if you're listening to this, you might be thinking, "Oh yeah, sure, Dustin." No, I kid you not. Every single time a student comes to me and says, "Dustin, I have very little money. I got $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it might be. How am I going to invest?" We work it out by building a business so that business then runs itself. That's a key thing. We build a business that runs itself, and then we make sure we make income. We want to be income builders, is what I like to call it. And what we do is we buy a property. Now, with that property, we don't want to do the work. So we build a business that runs itself, but then it also makes us money financially. So quickly, to get to the financing idea, let me give you two different examples. So number one, be creatively. If you have 16 different ways, you just got to figure out which way fits. Here's one example. I still have a student. His name is Benjamin. He's a Sacramento pastor up in Sacramento, California. Doesn't have any money. We know pastors don't make any money, but he did have a house that he bought in 2014, and he said, "Dustin, I know I'm not going to be able to work forever, so I got to figure out a way to make money for my family." I said, "Well, we have your house. Let's do this." And this is what we did. We got a home equity line of credit on his home. He then took that home equity credit, bought a house in Georgia, which means that now house is bought with cash. So it's free and clear, this new house. He fixes it up, rents it out, then refinances it, pull that cash back out, pays off his home equity line of credit. Now he has none of his own money. Like he didn't have to work a job to buy this house. His equity in his house did it. Now he pays off that home equity line of credit, has a property that makes him money, and he does it over and over again. That's just one. Another one that you can do is, if you a quick and easy way to explain it is taking over somebody's mortgage. And you might be thinking, well, shoot, how in the world do you do that? It's actually, now this is a little more, advanced strategy. There's a lot to learn in this, but I'm just giving you options. Like these are one of 16 different ways. If let's say you took over somebody's mortgage, you found a seller, they were hurting, they lost their job, they got divorced and moving out there, whatever what it might be, they might have a 3% interest rate, and you take over and then you run it in your business. So I want to make sure that everybody realizes that finances are absolutely not a problem when it comes to real estate investing. If you have very little money, we can buy properties easily.
Great. That's some great information, Dustin. I'm enjoying what it is you're saying. One thing I noticed.
Imagine if you could grow your wealth, access your money anytime tax-free, and never break the compound interest curve while you use your own money. Well, that's exactly what the infinite banking concept does.
And we help investors just like you implement this strategy, and we'd love to show you how. Schedule a free call with us and start taking control of your financial future today.
The link to schedule that will be in the show notes.
You'd mentioned building a business. You didn't talk about an investment. This was building a business. Do you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Most people don't catch on to that. So what people think when they buy a property, they think they become an investor. Now, remember my story, I started telling everybody I'm an investor, which is 100% what I want to do, because I want people to know, because they understand the word investor means they invest in something. They might buy or sell a property. And I want people to want to sell me properties or buy properties from me or rent my, lend me money. That's what I want people to know. But in actuality, what it comes down to is I'm a business owner. I'm not an investor. I'm a business owner. And here's really what it comes down to, what it looks like. A lot of people jump into investing. They buy their first property and they become a mom and pop investor where they're managing the properties themselves. They're finding the property. They're doing all the work themselves. That you can't scale a business to financial freedom if you're doing all the work yourself. Let me break it down a little bit more simply. Let's say you're going to start a convenience store, a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all the good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. What you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas. So those are shelving units. All the candy bars go on, the cold storage, the countertops, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, employees, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Then once the business is built, then you buy the inventory, and every piece of property that I buy is a piece of inventory that I put into my business. Just like a month ago, I closed on a 325 unit apartment complex. Me and my 3 partners, we raised a total of, I think, $9 million, bought it for, I think it was a $25 million property, got it 60 cents on the dollar because this seller was hurting. And so we, helped him out by buying the property from him. But that's inventory. Even though it's a huge property, it's inventory. So 2 things. Number 1, we focus on building a business that runs itself. Then number 2, we need to become an income builder. I love that idea. Like if you get in your brain that you are an income builder, then you will make money financially to provide for your family. A lot of people focus on quote unquote wealth. Wealth is great. When I say quote unquote, it's because if they focus on investing for wealth, this is what people did back in 2008 when the crash happened. I started back in 2006. I was worried that with the crash in 2008 that I was going to lose money because I saw so many real estate investors like go bankrupt. And the reason why is they were going for quote unquote wealth. They were hoping for appreciation. They were hoping for the value to go up, but they weren't going for income. See, wealth does not always equal income, but income will always equal wealth. This is what I mean. You buy one property that makes you $500 a month in passive income. One property at $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. $6,000 a year without working. I have 30 plus properties. So let's just do the math. You just scale it from here because you have other people doing the work for you. You're making that income. Let's say you had 10 properties. That's $60,000 a year. If you had, it's after $6,000 a year. If you had, am I doing the math right? I think I am. Anyways, 20 properties, you just start scaling from there. So what you want to do is making sure that you're making money in passive income, because if you bought just hoping the value goes up, what if it doesn't go up? And how are you going to feed your family every single day or month without having income coming in? And here's one quick tip. If you're going to build a business, you're going to make sure that you're making money whenever you sell a piece of, like, let's say a candy bar. So when you buy properties, you do not buy the property unless every single expense is paid for. Like people ask me, Dustin, how do you afford property managers? I say, I don't afford property managers. On this, I'll say it this way. I don't pay for property managers. I don't pay for taxes. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay my repairs. I don't pay any of that stuff. I don't have to get a job is what I mean. I don't have to get a job to pay that stuff. No, my tenants pay for all those because I account for those expenses before I buy the property. And I also account for the income that I want to make when I buy that property. So if I know I need to make $300 a month or $500 a month, I put that in as an expense line item. So I do not buy the property unless it makes me that much money. So and this is a great question, was building the business. When you build the business, you focus on income and you focus on getting the right people. One quick last thing about income, I'll give you a quick analogy. If you're going to buy a candy bar for 50 cents and you know all day, every day you could sell it for $1, you'd be thinking, shoot, how can I buy as many as I can? But what you would not do, you would not buy a candy bar for $2 if you could only sell it for $1. You'll lose money. That's what people do and they hope for appreciation. No, what we do, we buy it for less so we can rent it for or sell it for more, rent it for more. But here's the great thing about real estate investing. One quick last thing I'll say. Let's say you did not even have 50 cents to start that candy bar business, to buy one candy bar, but it cost you 25 cents to borrow 50. Now you're out of pocket 75 cents. And then you can sell it for $1. Well, you'd make 25 cents every single time you sold a candy bar. You'd be thinking, how do I borrow more money? Let me borrow as much money as I can because I'm having somebody else pay for that money. So that's and the great question, we build the business. We make sure that we're income builders, and then we have the business run itself. Does that all make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That was a good point about the 50 cents or even having to borrow 25, because really oftentimes we get so focused on rates or what the ROI is when we need to focus on what is the return. We need to focus on the dollars. Now, one obstacle people have getting into real estate is they have to worry about tenants, termites, and toilets. How do you get around that?
I do not want to talk to tenants, talk to contractors, talk to property managers. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to hire the people first. And this is what I mean. What I do, especially with not having to talk to tenants, is I build the business before I buy the inventory, before I buy real estate. What the quote unquote gurus on TikTok will do, and Instagram and all that stuff, they'll say, yeah, just buy a property, making sure that you're this is I'm going to tell you this, but I want you to forget it really quickly. They'll say, find a property anywhere in the country, make sure it's making you a little bit of money, passive income, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, then find a tenant, and then find a property manager. Well, in my opinion, that's basically backwards. In fact, I have so many people that come in, Dustin, I followed those gurus on TikTok and they were telling me this, that, and the other. And I went to find a property manager, and every property manager would say they would not manage a property because they get shot there. I'm like, well, you no longer have an asset. You have a liability. What we do is we build the business. We find the right people in the business first. Give you an example. A property manager, they're going to be the ones managing it forever, or hopefully until you sell it or fire them because they don't work out well. But I don't talk to my property managers because I hire them once. I make sure they're the best ones to fit my business. In fact, I teach my students, we have 20 different questions and answers that we need to ask the property manager to make sure we get the right ones. Because my first property manager stole from me within 6 months because I didn't know what I was doing. I just picked somebody. Oh, yeah, you got a pulse? Come here and do that. Well, in the end, it backfired on me. But if you're going to build a business, you're going to hire slow and fire fast. You're going to hire somebody, making sure that you're interviewing many people, many different times, asking lots of questions, making sure they fit your business. Then once you find that person, you keep them in your business. And so what with tenants and stuff, I don't want to talk to tenants. In fact, tenants have no clue who I am. And I use my property managers. They're the intermediaries for that. And then if I have any repairs, I make sure that I have a contractor that gets them on it, or my property managers take care of that. So when you think about the ongoing idea of managing the property and making sure that you're making money every single month, it is really the business that you build first. Because if you build the business after, then you're going to be stuck with a bad property. But if you build the business first, and then the experts, realtors, inspectors, insurance agents, mortgage brokers, all property managers. They're going to make sure that you buy a property that's going to make you money. And here's a quick example of what I'll say. So remember that not old, but the bad way that the TikTok gurus will tell you that you'll actually have a liability because you won't get any managers managing the property, no property managers as well. Well, instead of calling, hey, property manager, I just bought this house, will you manage it? And they say no, then you have a liability now. You say, property manager, I'm looking to buy this property here. Tell me how much it'll rent for. Will you manage it? What's the vacancy factor? What's the clientele like? And give me more information that you have. And if they tell you, no, I will not manage it, then you don't waste your time and money buying a property and pulling out your hair because it's a bad investment. That's why we build a business and become income builders, because as an income builder, we're going to make sure that we're making money and that the business runs itself.
That was some good stuff,
awesome.
Dustin.
That was good. I was trying to come up with this question, Dustin, is at what point should someone reach out to you, right? We've got listeners that are out there that are usually working a W-2. They're trying to transition to creating some passive income. A lot of times they look at real estate and they could be overwhelmed. Is that at a point when they should reach out to you early on, or when should they reach out to you?
Yeah. So the first time that somebody should reach out to me is after they have already decided that that's the direction they want to go. Like, do they really want to do it? Now, so my podcast, it's the Master Passive Income podcast. I started back in 2015, I think 2016. It's absolutely basically just a solo show, me just coaching how to do this. Because like I said, my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. People go back and binge the entire thing and they invest just by listening. And so what I suggest, if you want to come work with me, students now of mine, I've got thousands of students now, they're now coaches here at Master Passive Income, where they're coaching people as well, which is just so fun. But once you digest all the free content that's out there and you realize what strategy you really want to go with, and if you want to listen to my podcast, you can binge the entire one, which people do. They say, Dustin, I went from the very beginning, listened to all of them, and I learned so much just because you taught every single step of the way. And then now I invest in real estate. Now, once you have all this information in your brain, let me pause and say, I've taught friends, they'd say, hey, Dustin, I really want to invest in real estate. And so I would give them my time for free and coach them, and then they wouldn't do anything. I'm like, oh my goodness, you just wasted my time. Like, let's say 5-10 hours working with you when you weren't ready, or you didn't want to do this. So once you know, this is an answer to your question. Once you absolutely know that this is the direction you want to go, then I want you to then move forward, because we strike while the iron's hot, meaning as soon as you know you want to buy your first property, it's that first property that's the biggest hurdle for every single investor. And when you're striking while the iron's hot, you're excited about it, you know you're going to do this. Once you get that first property, you're going to be able to buy the second property within a month or two. I kid you not. My students, they come to me. They're so excited, which that excitement, when I said strike with iron's hot, gets them over hurdles or life things that come in their way. If they put it off, they'll be like me. I bought one property and then for years didn't buy anything, and then realized, crap, you'd be able to crash. I was like, I really got to start buying properties. And that's when I started. That's the iron is hot then. So when you want to move forward, what we do is we get that first win, which is that first property. And if you build a business, you do things like we do here at Master Passive Income, you build a business, and these leads, meaning properties or potential properties you buy, come in so much that once you buy your first property, honestly, almost every single one of my students, that first property comes because they built the business. That second property within the month or 2 months after that, because they've already got all the business working. It's just now buying the next piece of inventory and put it into their business.
Love it. What would be the expectation if somebody came to you and said, hey, I need X number of dollars to retire or to be quote unquote successfully unemployed, right? What dictates that?
So for me, when I went to my wife and I said, hey, honey, I don't want to work for somebody else again. I asked, what are our expenses? How much money do I need to bring in from job or something else for me to not have to work? And I remember the number. It's plain as day in my head. It was $4,200, mortgage, food, all that sort of stuff, like everything for the family. And I said, okay, it's just simple math. Let me break it down very, very simply. And I kind of went over this a little bit earlier, but I'll do it a little more. Let's say at minimum, this is the very minimum. I have properties making me $800 or $1,000 a month in passive income. Like that's literally money in my pocket. But let's say you just bought one property that made you $250 a month in passive income. Well, that's $3,000 a year. That's not bad. That's really good. It's good buffer for any problems and all that sort of stuff. But that's money you can feed your family with. Then 10 properties, that is, instead of $250 a month, that's $2,500 a month. That's really great. If you had 20 properties, that's $5,000 a month. So I think I hit financial independence when I had like 17 properties or something like that. And from there, I just kept scaling and scaling and scaling. And the great thing about all this too, let's say you bought one house that made you $250 a month. That's $3,000 a year. 10 properties is how much is that? $60,000 a year. 20 properties, $120,000 a year. So what happens is you start scaling, and the money that you make from each property rolls into the next one, and it becomes exponential. It's so much faster to get those properties. Plus, honestly, like I absolutely think infinite banking, like if you do the infinite banking concept that you guys use, that's another access to capital. It's one of the 16, 17 different ways that we can get financing to buy real estate. But what you do is you make sure that you build the business, make income, and then you figure out what your expenses are. What are your expenses? And then we work our way backwards into that number. And honestly, what happens is, one quick last thing I'll say is you'll get somebody that doesn't work with me. They'll buy one property and they might get to 3 or 4, which is good. Don't get me wrong. It's really good, but they don't build a business. They don't get the right people in place, and then they get stuck. This happens every time. There's a phase. There's a beginner phase, which is just getting started. And then there's the builder phase where you're starting to build up your business. But then you have to get into the scaler phase. A scaler is where you're going from 4 and 5 properties, which usually most people get stuck, to where they get to 10, 20, 30 plus properties, because what got you to where you have 4 or 5 properties is not going to get you there. Like what got you here is not going to get you there. And so in the end, what we do is we scale the business. I invest in 5 different states now, Texas, Ohio, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. And in these 5 different states, every time I go and invest in another city, another state, I build a brand new business, find the right people, but I've done it so many times now that it's not that hard. And then I buy the inventory and put it into the business. Does that all make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dust, I got a question for you. Stick with me here because there's a bit of an introduction to it. Is that the other day I was watching and I saw this clip on social media, and it was talking about Mr. Beast. Do you guys know who Mr. Beast is?
Yep.
He produces a ton of content, right? And they were looking at like his last 10 videos that he did. The top 2 videos were him doing his normal stuff, but the bottom video was him when he was giving away money, right? And so nobody was watching that. The takeaway that I had is that people like to hear about success, but they really like to hear about failures, right? Dustin, what is an obstacle or a failure of yours that you can share with our audience that they know that, hey man, you just didn't have, a golden driveway down this road for you?
Yeah, the biggest failure, I'll give you 2. The first one is my property manager started stealing from me in 6 months. After the very first property that I got, my wife said, "See, I told you it didn't work." I was like, "Oh, this is horrible." And so that was rough. And the reason why, and that leads into the second failure. The reason why that was so rough is because I didn't build the business first. I just followed what, in fact, in 2006, there were infomercials. And then they say, like late night infomercials, they say, "We're coming to your town, a free 2-hour seminar." So I said, great. I went to that free 2-hour seminar. It was horrible. It's all a sales pitch, a scam. They say, "Now run to the back. It's normally $1 billion, but it's $10,000 today." I did that. I ran to the back. So I did all this sort of stuff. And so I in doing that, I did everything wrong because they're just salesmen. They want to sell this stuff. So here is the first problem, was not finding the right property manager or not building the business first, which led into me. The second failure was not getting the right properties. And these right properties only come because I built the business first. So if you build the business first, finding the right people, and do it slowly, you don't say, "Oh, let me just call one person and okay, you're great, let's move forward." No, in fact, I had to fire one property manager, I would say 3 months ago, and now getting a second property manager, but I'm taking my time because I want to work with a property manager for 5, 10, 15 years. I just want them to run with it and not me have to do anything with it. And so the failure comes when you do not find the right people. And then that's going to be even worse is if they don't do the right things because you're not telling, like, when somebody starts thinking, I know better than the experts that live there on the ground, especially we invest out of state. I love investing out of state. I don't have to do anything. They do all the work and I make sure it's paid for by the tenants. Well, if you think that you know better than the expert that lives there on the ground, well, you might, but at the same time, the experts there, they know the city, they know the contractors, they know the people around there, that, you know, everybody in as an expert will help you because they want to make money. If you succeed, they will succeed. So my failure is not building the business first and finding the wrong people. We build the right business and we find the right people.
That is awesome. Dustin, let me ask you this. What, if somebody wanted to come to you, what are you looking for? Like what sort of, how much capital should they have? And realistically, how much time should they be able to commit to starting this business?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's one thing that a lot of people come to me. They have jobs, they have families. I mean, I did too. I mean, I had a job, had 4 kids. And so, yeah, well, before I get there, because I'm going to walk you through all that. Would you mind if I just give everybody a free course just because?
No, I would not. Of
Awesome.
course, Dustin, of course. Yeah. No, please.
So let me go ahead and I'll just give this to you. I want you to start investing. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, or go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word. I'll give you my course. It'll walk you through everything from finding an area in the country to invest, how to find the right people to build the business, buy the right properties, and then scale your business to become financially independent. I'll give that to you completely for free. Now, to get your question about time and money involvement in this. So yes, it does take time to set up a business, just like any business. It's going to take time because you're going to have to find the right people that fit you. Just like for both of you guys, the people that work for me might not work well for you. I've had it where one property manager that worked great for me, I passed him on to like 5 other people, 5 of my students, and they didn't work well at all with them. And so you need to build your business. So if you're going to do this right, my suggestion is, if you're going to, especially let's say you're going to start, we have coaching, we have courses and all that sort of stuff. If you want to get started, time commitment, because that's the most important thing. The most valuable thing you'll ever spend is your time, not money, it's your time. So the time commitment to learn how to do it well, to build the business. If you spend 3 to 5 hours a week, by the third week, end of the third week, you should already be putting in offers. So, I mean, that's like, let's say 15 hours. I mean, you spend more time going to college and then get a piece of paper and get in lots of debt. Whereas if you go this route, you're going to be making money. And so 3 to 5 hours by the end of the third week, if not into the fourth week, you should be putting in offers and have your business built. Now, time-wise, you get that first property in the first 1 to 2 months. The second property, like clockwork. I tell you, this is absolutely true. So many students, like at least 90% of my students, get their second property within a month or two because they've already done all the work. Now properties come in. Now, financially, I will say this, because a lot of people ask me, hey, Dustin, is $5,000 enough to start investing in real estate? I'll say it two different things. Number one, yes, 100%. And the reason why $5,000 is enough, you could even start with $0. It's just so much more work on your end. It's so much more easier if you have access to capital. If you have infinite banking policy, if you have a home equity line of credit, if you have cash in the bank, or if you have a private money lender, if you have a secured line of credit somewhere else, or an unsecured line of credit, like all these things is access to capital, because you do need capital to invest. But at the same time, let's say you had $200,000. This is something else. You won't ever hear anybody that teaches real estate tell you this. I tell this to any student who comes to me that has a lot of money to invest, and this is something you will never hear. So if you come to me and you have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, I'm like, I'm so excited for you. This is what you can do, X, Y, and Z, but here's something I want you to watch out for. When you have this much money, you're not going to build the business and be so stringent on every single expense. Let's say you're not going to fight for an extra $1,000 off of the this purchase price. Let's say you're buying a house for $150,000, which you absolutely can, makes you $300 or $400 a month in passive income. Well, let's say it's $150,000. Oh, I got $500,000. I'm not going to negotiate down to 145,000. I'm not going to save $5,000. I'm like, why not do that? Like, what you need to do is act as if you have no money, because in the end, you're going to build the business so much more securely that's going to provide for your family, because a penny saved is a penny earned. So if you have $0, we absolutely can invest. If you have a lot of money, we absolutely can invest. And honestly, money just helps you to make it easier on yourself to get that property. One quick last thing I'll say, let's say you have no money whatsoever. I will show you how to do creative financing. And a couple of ways would be seller financing, where you find a buyer, you're the buyer. You find a seller who is really needing to sell, and you have them become the bank and you make them payments. Another way, that doesn't take any money out of your pocket, just takes a lot of work on your end to get there. Another quick way is subject to, or you're taking over the mortgage payments to the bank. You just got to find the right seller. It's a lot of work on your end, but you absolutely can. And so what I do is I teach my students, we implement all these different ways, from capital to, finding properties to managing. We have all these different things as tools in a tool belt. Imagine, you're a construction worker, you get a big tool belt. Every tool is for a specific job. That's financing. We have that many different ways to get financing, that these are different tools. Whatever deal comes our way, we figure out what tool goes into that deal to make sure we can buy it and then make cash flow from that every single month.
Dustin, as we wrap up here, man, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up your shirt. I love it. I mentioned it before we got started, but for everybody that's driving and listening, it says "Successfully Unemployed." Man, tell me the story behind that and where somebody could find one.
Yeah, so I wrote a book called How to Quit Your Job to Rental Properties. One quick reason why I wrote the book was I was showing so many people, just for fun, teaching them how to do it. And then they had great questions, but they were beginner questions. And I was answering the same question over and over again. Those are friends and family members, coworkers and stuff. And so I wrote the book, How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties. We sell it on Amazon and all that sort of stuff. And I would just give it away. Say, here, read this. And then when you are done reading this, you're going to have better questions that fit you, more applicable to you. Then I can help you. And so I started giving that out. And that was basically the entire blueprint of how to do this. And then I needed a follow-up book. This follow-up book was, I quit my job and I learned so many lessons on what to do with, like, let's say, what do you do with insurance? What do you do with all your vacation time? Like, how do you deal with the boss? Like, all that sort of stuff, all these lessons that I learned, I wanted to put into a follow-up book. And I was like, hey, honey, I was talking to my wife, hey, honey, I need a new name. I need a name for this book. And I was thinking, okay, retire fast, retire, whatever. I was just thinking a bunch of names. My wife came up with it. She said, hey, how about Successfully Unemployed? I'm like, I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, and then now I put on a shirt, and this shirt, whenever I wear it all the time, especially to conferences that you have people that you'd like to talk to. The biggest thing about the shirt is it's a conversation starter. And I get people that want to invest in my deals or work with me or whatever, or even sell me houses because they see my shirt and they want to talk about it. It's a conversation starter, which is great. But you can absolutely find it on my website, or even just go to Amazon. Go to Amazon. And there's a couple knockoffs, but mine is, just look up Successful Unemployed and you'll see it's an S with a U in the middle, like the logo, the emblem, and then Successful Unemployed. Either way, I just want somebody to be able to realize that they can be successfully unemployed and get 40 plus hours of their life back, so they don't have to work for somebody else.
Love it.
Dustin, I love it, man. One more time, where can somebody find you if they're looking to get started?
Yeah, thank you so much. So definitely listen to my podcast, the Master Passive Income Podcast. Like I said, it's a solo show, me just teaching you how to do this. You can even get my course, again, rental to 33777, or masterpassiveincome.com/free course. But then also what's fun, I have YouTube. You can check me out there. But I've been getting into social media a little bit more. I think I have 40,000 followers on Instagram now. But it's just fun posting this stuff because I can help people how to invest in real estate, but I also get DMs. I'm a pretty extroverted guy. It might come across that way, but I'm a pretty extroverted guy. I even have a conference that I put on. We get hundreds of investors together. I get to hang out with people. But anyways, find me on Instagram. Reach out to me. Send me a DM. Told me you listen to the Infinite Wealth Consultant podcast. I mean, I want you guys to realize that we're all here in this together, that we can all work together. Oh, the Dustin Heiner, THE, Dustin Heiner. And that's why I give it out, because I want people to DM me, let me know that you're investing. If you got infinite banking, like I believe in infinite banking myself, I'm about ready to get a policy. I think real estate investing and infinite banking and all these other ways to get capital are going to help you to have wealth for the future and income now so you can feed your family. But I really appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate you. Even appreciate Cameron. Psych. Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
If you like this video, I know you'll like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.